It's the Emily T. Gail Talk Story Show, and I'm here at the Mitsubishi Electric Championship at Hualalai on the beautiful Big Island, Hawaii, where I live. I'm with Mark Rolfing, NBC Golf Channel, and a longtime friend, over 25 years. But this event has been here at Hualalai Resort for 25 years. What a wonderful venue it's been, the longest running tournament on the PGA Tour. And Mark, you've been so involved in going all the way back to the senior skins. You've been such a visionary for Hawaii, this Hawaii swing that we just have with the Century Tournament of Champions. You were so involved in the formation of that years ago, and over to the Sony, and now they're here in the Big Island. But a little background about yourself. I mean, we're both city kids. You're from Chicago. You love your hometown. I'm from Detroit. I love my hometown. And we both love being in Hawaii too, and we love sharing both of our communities. So a little bit about yourself.
Well, yeah, I'm a Chicago boy at heart, deep down. I went through, how long, 60 losing seasons of the Chicago Cubs, and rooted for them every game, and finally they won a World Series, and I got that monkey off my back. But I love Chicago still, just like you love Detroit. And by the way, I love Detroit too. I always enjoyed going for the Ford Senior Players in Detroit. I've been to U.S. Open there, PGA Championship. Detroit is probably the most underrated town in America, I think. Big town. Maybe it could be in a tie with Cleveland, I don't know. But it seems like all of the towns around the lakes in the Midwest are different than the other cosmopolitan areas in America. And I think both Chicago and Detroit are kind of like that. Certainly they have their own unique set of challenges in those towns, but they have a small town feeling in a fairly big city. And the people are just genuine, and they love their home turf. They absolutely love it. And I'm so glad to see a reconnaissance, or a renaissance, I guess you would say, going on in Detroit. Unfortunately, I think Chicago's kind of lagging a little bit behind right now, and I hope we crank it up there. I'm involved there with Tiger Woods and President Obama in a public golf project that I think will happen now that his presidential center is back on track. Hopefully that'll happen later this year, but you're never going to get the Midwest out of me. I think I came out to Hawaii to get away from everybody there in my mind back then, and now I sort of gravitate back to them whenever I can.
Well, you were giving it a try on different tours when you landed in Maui many years ago, and what a blessing for the state of Hawaii that you did, because you have been a visionary, just like you're a visionary what you and Tiger are doing in Chicago. Maybe later we'll talk about that, but I was delighted to get a text from you over Thanksgiving. You said, hey, I just got my schedule for 2021 with the Golf Channel, and I'm going to be doing the Golf Channel live at the Rocket Mortgage Classic in Detroit. It'll be the third year. It's huge. It's a PGA Tour event, and it's a Detroit Golf Club. It's been a huge gift to the city of Detroit, just like the Buick Open was for many years for the Flint and Detroit area. So we both feel very strongly about how these PGA events coming close to urban areas, how important it is.
Well, they are, and you know, I'll tell you the thing I like about Rocket Mortgage is it's gone back to a classic venue. You know, Detroit Golf Club is not a TPC. This is not the TPC of Detroit or the TPC of Michigan. I'm not even sure if it's there anymore. I love Detroit Golf Club. It's small.
Yes.
It's pretty small. But you know what? It just goes to show that you don't necessarily need these gigantic sites for PGA Tour events. And I think in a way the players like it. They like being able to play holes where it's not just how far can you hit it. That's not the necessary thing to do at Detroit Golf Club. They like being able to walk from a green right off that green right over to the next tee. In a lot of cases, you're not getting in carts and being transported all over the place. So I think Rocket Mortgage has done really well. I think it's found a niche there that's a great sponsor, obviously, with huge ties to Detroit. And what I think has really helped them is they've gotten a following of a loyal group of players that really enjoy that tournament, and they're going to be the ambassadors going forward.
Yeah, they've been wonderful so far.
They've been great.
You know, you mentioned about the course. You know, people being able to walk from the green to the tee. For those of people that don't understand or don't know the history of how the game of golf is developed with golf course designers, and in the old days, everybody had caddies, or the greens. The courses were built where you did walk off the green, and the tee box, next tee box was right there because people were walking. As carts came in back in the 60s and became actually the pros at the private clubs wanted that revenue for carts. Everybody started building golf courses differently, and with those long stretches from green to cart, and it's kind of nice to see them going back to these classic Donald Ross courses. And you know, like you say, that some of
the ones that aren't real estate driven, you know, as much as I love Hualalai, if you think about it, you know, it's a momentum breaker, I think, to play the 17th hole, which is a hard enough hole, especially when the wind's blowing, and then get yourself either in a cart, or in some cases, players are riding on the backs of the carts to go over the 18th tee, because you have to be careful. The cart path is narrow, and that's kind of the way this had to be built. But I like the old style. You know, we had to do it at the plantation course. We have 4 different times during the round where the players actually get in a cart, and one time where they actually get in a vehicle, a van, which goes from the 5th green to the 6th tee. It's almost 4/10 of a mile, and you know, it was necessary there. We couldn't play through the gulch, we couldn't play across it, but I don't know, I like the old style stuff.
Yep.
Now, having said that, I think the thing that's made Hawaii so popular this time of year is it's kind of become appointment television. You know, this is not the Masters, but it's still the time of year where people are freezing around most of the mainland, and they are used to turning on the TV. And yeah, they want to see good golf and they want to see famous players, but what they really want to see is the ocean and the vistas and the volcanoes and the whales, and kind of, you know, conjuring up thoughts for everybody that someday I'm going to go there and play. That's the great thing about golf.
And hearing your stories, and you're talking about the culture and the history of Hawaii, that means a lot to people. Jack Barry, 50 years, you know, covered 125 major events, Lifetime Achievement Award, has his own parking space at the Masters. But you know, Jack, longtime writer, he just wrote a column last week for Michigan Golfer, and he mentioned you and how much he loves hearing what you say on the broadcast. But that Hawaii swing that starts, you mentioned Kapalua, that's the Century Tournament of Champions, the first leg of the Hawaii swing. And then, as I mentioned, the Sony Open then over here. But Mark, you had a lot to do with creating the energy behind that Hawaii swing. Golf was not a destination sport for Hawaii for many years.
No,
right?
Well, no, and I'll tell you what got me thinking about it, Emily, was playing in the Hawaiian Open. So I played in that a couple times, and I started realizing that the most famous golf course in all of Hawaii by far was Hualalai Country Club, because people saw it every year on TV for the Hawaiian Open. And everybody wanted to go check in the Kahala Hotel and walk across the street and tee off at Hualalai, and you couldn't do it because it was a private club. So Arnold Palmer was designing the second golf course at Kapalua. He had already designed the bay course over there, and he and I had become pretty good friends, and we started talking, and we conjured up a small little 12-man event on Tuesday of the Hawaiian Open in 1977. We got on a little Royal Hawaiian airplane, flew Tuesday morning from Waialae with a group over to Maui, and played Kapalua. And it was a good group of players. Lanny Watkins was in the group. Can't remember who all, but some really big name players. And everybody got their first look at Maui and their first thought of, you know, maybe we ought to be playing some competitive golf on the neighbor islands, not just Hawaiian Open. And it was only a couple years later that we started the Kapalua Open, and Arnold played in the first one. He said he would. Nobody ever believed he would.
And when would that have been? What year?
It was 1982.
Okay, is that when Hale Irwin started representing
Hale
Kapalua?
Irwin was the touring pro, and, you know, first prize in the tournament was $15,000, literally. But they said they would come, and they did. And, you know, by the next year, the purse had tripled, and first prize had gone from $15,000 to $100,000 it was in 1983. And that was what kind of grew into the neighbor islands, you know, hosting some big events in golf. And there was a point, I think, in the late 90s, Emily, where we had 9 televised events one year from Hawaii. I'm pretty sure we had 9.
That would have included the senior skims then.
Had
the Manalani senior skims.
It had Takafuji, Ladies Hawaiian Open. It had Women's Kemper. It had PGA Grand Slam of Golf. There was a lot of events going on out here. And I think that really changed people's perception of golf in Hawaii.
That was Michelle Wee Takafuji. She was the youngest to qualify
13,
for an LPGA event. Of course, you've been so close to Michelle from very young age, and all of us have been around her from a young age. Or in the old days, it would just be a few of us playing in the Hawaii State Open. That was before all the juniors. But that's when Michelle came on the scene. But all of you, Mary B. Porter King was on the LPGA. She came to Hawaii, moved to Hawaii. You, Scott Head, who spent some time at Treetops in Michigan, so we have Detroit ties there. Yourself started the Hawaii State Junior Golf Association that has just been phenomenal, the way you've been able to contribute to developing young players. That have, so many of our Hawaii players have gone off to play on the tours or stayed in the business of golf. Comment about that and the fact that the Hawaii State Junior Golf Association is now going to take over First Tee in Hawaii, which is a big move, I think.
Yeah, this is a big move. You know, First Tee nationally is a huge organization. It's very strong. They raise a lot of money. They've got the PGA Tour. They're basically owned by the PGA Tour, effectively. The only place where they had a weakness was Hawaii, and the chapter for the First Tee out here had changed hands 3 or 4 times over the last 20 years, and finally the commissioner of the PGA Tour said, you know, do you think you could figure out what to do about First Tee in Hawaii? And I said, well, yeah, I don't need to figure it out. I can tell you right now what I think we should do, and that is figure out how to merge it with the Hawaii State Junior Golf Association, because that's one of the best junior golf associations in America. It's got a rock solid group of rock star people on its board. It's got the strength of Mary B, of course, who was the founder, but you know, you've got Admiral Tom Fargo on there, and David Carey, you know, for so many years was probably the most influential hotel
from Outrigger.
From Outrigger, he's on that board. And so we have merged the 2 organizations. That was effective a couple of weeks ago, so that the charter for the First Tee is actually held by the HSJGA. And I think what you're going to see is a very aggressive move. I think we're going to move off the island of Kauai. We've been in effectively Mary B. Porter's garage for 20 years. And it's time that we, you know, have a headquarters.
Yeah.
And I think the headquarters ought to be on the island of Oahu. That's where the majority of our public golf is played. That's where all the kids are. We are going to have outposts on all the neighbor islands. We've got a tremendous group of people on the Big Island now working on it, including some people that you might not have expected would get involved in junior golf, like Ross Birch is getting really involved in this over here now. So what you're going to have is a headquarters. I believe it's going to be at Alawai. I'm pretty sure we're going to be able to make that happen. And we're going to rebrand Alawai back to kind of the icon that course ought to be.
The busiest public course in the country.
Anymore.
Yeah,
it isn't anymore, Emily. And I think it would change if all the golf organizations got together. You know, we're hopeful the Aloha section ends up over there, and you know, they have no relationship with the University of Hawaii, for example, which is a mile away.
Well, you know, somebody has to thread these screws. I've always felt like I'm a good threader, you know, and people need to do it, because then there's people that have been in positions where they know what they can bring to the table. Like you mentioned Ross Birch. Waikoloa Beach Resort had a wonderful junior program for years, and Ross taught there because he was one of the pros. And of course, he's gotten away from it, being with the Hawaii Visitors Bureau, and it's nice to hear that he's going to get back involved. And I grew up as a junior golfer. I aspired to be on the LPGA, tried a few times in the 70s, quit, came over here to Hawaii, got back involved in golf thanks to Ted McAneely with Prince Resorts. I got involved doing clinics, and a couple of things you mentioned there, you know, people that are so supportive of Hawaii State Junior Golf Association, even some Detroiters. My friends Paul Forte and Nancy Clavel Forte and Jim Mallon, all kinds of friends have participated in an event that you have every year at this Mitsubishi Electric Championship. You didn't have it this year because of COVID and everything, but you always have a special event that the players, a dozen players, donate their time on the Monday before the Mitsubishi. They go up there, they play with a very elite group of people at Nanea, and you raise a lot of money. And I know my friends, Paul Forte and Nancy Claville, have bought a lot of auction items, but they're wonderful things. They're like being able to be with you for 5 days at the U.S. Open, or, I mean, all kinds of things.
Well, yeah, we were really disappointed on that event. We have it in Nanea every year, and I sort of MC the auction.
Yeah.
And I, last year, Emily, I'm going to say we raised over $200,000 that day. And the people in that room were just amazing. And the senior players, I've had 4 or 5 guys come up to me this week and say how disappointed they were that they couldn't go, that we couldn't do it at Nanea this year, but what could they do to help? So we're actually going to have an online auction starting in a month.
Okay.
And we're going to gather up some of the same prizes that we had before, and we're just not going to do it in person. I said, look, I'll do that once, but I'm ready for this COVID to be over with. I want to have this year be a total aberration, and I don't ever want to do it like this again.
Well, I know the players do like playing in that event. That's where I met Olin Brown. I happened to play with him one year, and we've become very good friends. And who else? David Toms I played with one year because Nancy was injured, so I got to replace her with Paul. And David Toms' caddy is from Detroit, Scott Nicer. So it's been fun, being friends with Scott. I met him a few years ago, but that is a wonderful event and a very generous spirit of the people up at Nanea. And let's talk about the generous spirit of the people here at Four Seasons Resort for 25 years. You talk about being residential. I was thinking about it yesterday because I looked at that row of apartments or condos right there. That was the only residential that was here at Hualalai the very first year. And we had the media room at the last condo room down there at the end.
Oceanfront Media Center.
Yeah, but I mean, look at the expanse of it. But all their residents, everybody giving up their, the whole facility for the spectators in our community. But more than that, the money that's raised every year for the Rotary Club of Kona Community Foundation, they've done such a great job over the years organizing all the volunteers. Big Island Junior Golf on a Saturday like this of the final round, the Big Island Junior golfers would normally be out here getting autographs from all the players, and then also the Daniel Sayre Foundation.
Yeah, this resort, has been really the heartbeat of this tournament. I don't know. Everybody thinks, oh, well, we could have a tournament at so-and-so place or so-and-so place. It's just not that easy, particularly in a busy time of the year, which January typically is, to get something together like this and to be able to pull off what I think is probably the most popular event on the entire tour. It's the only one I hear players talking about all year. It's not like that on the PGA Tour. If you ask, 100 guys on the PGA Tour, what's your favorite event? You would get 20 Masters and a couple Kapaluas and some Pebble Beaches and some, U.S. Opens and some Open Championships. If you ask 100 guys at senior golf what the number one tournament for them is and what the number one goal is, 99 of them would say to play at Hualalai. And I think that's a real testimony to the people here. There's a lot of nice resorts around the world, let's face it. But there are not a lot of places that have a thread of a community like Hualalai and, going all the way back to the John Freitas days. And of course, Pat Fitzgerald has been here through most of it. It's got a personality to it and a warmth to it that makes you feel like when you come back here every year, and most of us only come here once a year, me a little bit more, but for these players that come once a year, and guys will tell you it feels like coming home.
What I think is really important is all of them that have come for so many years, and there's been a wave of players because they have to earn their right here. Some of them have 5-year exemptions, like Ken Tanagawa, who it's been fun to get to know Ken, and who else? Olin Brown had a 5-year exemption if they win a major. But Earl Regador, Kahu Billy Mitchell, so many of the people that are out here that work with the resort have really taught people, yourself on the broadcast and as you read and get to know, the players so well anyway, but teaching them about the culture in Hawaii and the history and some of the nuances that are important to know when you're visiting Hawaii and when you're out there telling stories about the state of Hawaii. And they've all become real ambassadors and knowledgeable ambassadors.
Well, they have. And, you know, for me, I came to Hawaii, you know, and now, you know, I'm not quite in Hawaii, but I'm sort of halfway in between. I'm in Hawaii is the way I go with it. But I don't have any notes. I'm getting ready to go up to the booth now. I don't have to read anything. When I do other broadcasts from other great destinations, I'm always reading something.
Doing your homework.
I don't know it.
Yeah.
But not here.
Well, let's talk about this final round today. We're sitting over here. There's the 18th hole. You know, normally people would be getting ready to sit down there at the spectator green, which was built as a spectator green, actually, when this resort was built. And but with no spectators. But it's going to be an exciting event on the Golf Channel, 2 p.m. Hawaii time, 7 p.m. Eastern time, as it is every year. But Jerry Kelly, boy, he stuck a 6-iron in there dead into the wind yesterday on the 18th, made a birdie to take the lead along with Darren Clark, and Retief Goosen is right there behind them. It's going to be some great golf today. And Jerry loves playing here. He won in 2018.
He does, and don't forget about Fred Couples.
Oh, right.
You know, he did his typical sleepwalk through the opening round.
The lowest round of the tournament,
Yeah, and he played great yesterday. It's interesting, you know, you look at this hole, the first hole at Hualalai is a dogleg left, and the last hole is a dogleg left, which is very unusual for Jack Nicklaus. I remember Jack bringing me out here one year during Senior Skins in the early 90s and showing me the property before anything was here. And I couldn't see a thing. I was looking at these vast lava fields that he was talking about. We're going to do this or that. And I said, you know, what's the 18th hole going to be like? And he said, it's going to be, you know, a short dogleg left with a lot of trouble. I said, dogleg left, are you all right, Jack? Let me check your temperature here. You okay? So this is I don't know of any other Jack Nicklaus design anywhere in the world, and there's hundreds of them, that finishes with a dogleg left, because he hit every shot left to right. But it's gonna be a great day. I'm hoping the wind comes up a little bit. It always comes.
Yeah, like yesterday afternoon.
Oh man. That changed dramatically. I don't know. I've got a hunch about Darren Clark. I thought he really held up well yesterday. He made a big mistake at the 11th hole. Made a bad planning mistake and then hit a bad shot and ended up in a bogey. And he could have gotten down on himself and really let things get away, and he didn't. He has a tremendous attitude, and I like the way he finished. He has definitely got the most momentum coming.
Yeah, he finished bogey, but he had a really...
No, that was Goosen.
Goosen was bogey.
Yeah.
But Darren was very upbeat. He said the same thing, that he had played well in the Pro-Am. The next day, his first round, he could have gotten down on himself yesterday, but he was pleased that he did not.
Yeah, you know, and for anybody listening that is over the age of 50, if you take a look at Darren Clark, he is a great example of what you should do if you want to play golf late into life. He's a big man. He's not by any means in great shape. You know, he looks like a refrigerator, actually, when you look at him. But when you watch Darren Clark, he is so flexible. And you watch him warm up on the range. He's got this speed stick, and he swings it left-handed and right-handed. He can make a gigantic full turn, and he has retained his flexibility. And so, to me, as we get older in our years and still want to play golf and play as good as he can, retaining flexibility is probably the single most important thing, even if you are a little bit overweight, like Darren.
Yeah.
Because you can still play really well, as he's shown us.
And people are starting to really learn that. It isn't all about strength and everything. A couple comments about just the state of golf. I mean, the golf has grown so much this year. The number of rounds being played because of the circumstances of communities, but it is in a very good state right now, isn't it? And the LPGA, the Champions Tour, all the tours.
Yeah, it is. You know, interestingly enough, Hawaii is lagging behind most of the country when it comes to the golf performance. It's the only state that hasn't had a year-to-year growth from 2019 to 2020, and that's, you know, almost solely because we don't have any tourists coming yet. You know, effectively none. I will tell you, Emily, I thought the pandemic and the break that we had to take and some of the adjustments that were made to the game were really good. You and I have talked about this before. I remember you asked me one time about what were the biggest challenges facing the golf industry when we were struggling, maybe a decade ago or so. And I said, you know, there's three basic problems. For beginning golfers, the game's too hard, it takes too long, and it costs too much. And that's always going to be the case. But during this pandemic, we did a lot of things to address those issues. Certainly the pace of play has picked up dramatically everywhere, not just on the tours, but in everyday golf. And I'm not saying that long term we ought to be taking balls out of bunkers or not holding putts or doing that kind of stuff. But I hope we have learned that you can play faster. We just proved it. And once you play faster, it's more enjoyable. And I think that's one of the reasons why you know, there's more beginning golfers. You play faster, you play better.
And the recreational golfer picks up all those nuances as the tour players play faster and they step up and, you know, don't dawdle. I don't say dawdle. I know they're looking at what they're doing, but nevertheless, I'm glad to see that they've put some, even the time limits on the players now instead of the group. There's all kinds of little things.
Yeah, these things are pretty strict, and I think it's good. I noticed over at Kapalua right away a significant increase in pace of play. It has definitely helped.
You know, golf, you know, there's no elitist game, and I thought a great comment I heard at the Masters when Chairman Ridley, they making some changes within it, you know, to make it more accessible and for them contributing more in their local community. But somebody said, why wasn't this done sooner? And he said, you know, so many of us on the board, many of us in the game of golf, look at ourselves sometimes and say, why didn't we do this sooner? And there's all kinds of things that are now becoming to, you know, to sort of, I don't want to say lessen the margins of who can get into the game. And there's so many players now that are inspiring maybe less advantaged, and things like Hawaii State Junior Golf and First Tee are bringing the less advantaged youngster into the game.
You know, I think one of the reasons why we didn't do it sooner is that, and I'm probably, you know, as notorious for this anybody, I focus so much on 0.1% of the golf population, and that is the guys that play on the tour. And we always think about what should we do to make that better, and what's wrong with that, or oh my heavens, they're hitting the ball too far. The ball's going too far. Well, it might be going too far for a couple of guys, but I must tell you that I have not heard a recreational golfer ever in my life say, you know what, Mark, I'm hitting it too far. I'm quitting. This game's no fun anymore. I'm just quitting. I haven't heard one person ever say that. So we spend all of our time focusing on this little bit of the golf population, and I think that has inhibited some change and some progress, I think, when it comes to growing the game.
Yeah, and the Masters has done a great job in recent years with the chip putt and what is it, drive, chip and putt.
Yeah.
And not only that, having the women's amateur at the Masters, all kinds of things. The one where they now bring the person from overseas that wins, what is it, the Asian amateur. So all these things are great developments that have happened in the game of golf. And you know, I grew up, and I was thinking about it today. I was the first woman to work in a golf shop in Michigan back in the 60s.
Wow.
Wasn't a real popular move by, you know, because that wasn't really a common thing. But I didn't think of it as an elitist game then. But you know, over the years, I've realized, yes, it is. I don't even want to use the word elitist. I'd say we're privileged. We've been privileged, those of us that have been in the game and been able to play the game. And I see so many now coming into it that wouldn't have had the chance if it hadn't been for the way so many have been focusing on growing the game.
You know, I got to toot the horn of my employer, the Golf Channel, who just celebrated their 25th birthday last week or 2 weeks ago over at Kapalua. I really think the Golf Channel has changed the game.
Absolutely.
Forever and made it so much better. And it has introduced all aspects of the game to a base of the population that never would have been subjected to being able to see that.
They were fishermen. I remember Arnold Palmer being at the Senior Skins, which you played in as a celebrity, and that contributed so much to the Senior Skins. And he and Joe Joe Gibbs, his partner in the Golf Channel, not the Washington Redskins Joe Gibbs, but Joe came and they played in the Pro-Am together. But at that time they were talking about the Golf Channel and they were trying to get it on cable, and people were like, what, 24 hours of golf? And within a few years it didn't get on the regular cable. They had to work at that for a while. But I started hearing fishermen talking about playing golf, and construction workers, and people that hadn't really looked at the game as something they might do.
Yeah, I got to tell you, I didn't think it would work. I don't know. I remember
Really?
talking to Arnold about it. I just couldn't figure out where they were going to get 24 hours a day, 7 days a week of programming.
Well,
I just didn't.
And the beauty of it is there's so many old ones. Look, Arnold Palmer, Jack Nicklaus, and Gary Player played together for the first time at Mauna Kea Resort here.
Right.
Back in, 1966 or something, 64, whatever it was.
Yeah.
The opening of it.
Big Three golf.
Big Three of golf. Just to see that on TV. All those old Shell's Wonderful World, the things they run. But now there's so much golf programming, they don't even have time to run all those, but all the golf films, I just think it's fantastic what it's done. It's, golf is such a great game. I remember my father when he was in his 80s, he never played a lot of golf because he worked so hard, and he used to say to me, how'd you learn to hit that ball that well? I'd say, well, you were working hard. I had the opportunity to play golf. But he was about 85, I think, the last time I played with him. He said, I don't know about you, but I like playing those forward tees.
Well, I do too. I remember the story about Gary Player over there at Mauna Kea at that third hole. They had built a tee back there just for the Big Three of golf. And Gary Player got back there, and he knew he couldn't get it over the ocean. It was a 260-yard carry or something like that back in the day. And he said, nope, I'm playing the forward tee. Yep. If you guys want to play back here, go right ahead, but I'm teeing off up there.
I asked Gary about that once, because Gary, you were talking about Jack designing his golf course. What was beautiful is when this tournament started here, it was the senior tour at the time. It was a tour of nostalgia. So we had Gary Player, Jack Nicklaus, Arnold Palmer. They'd come over. I think one year it was played before the scans, but they wrapped around together. But to see those guys, and I asked Gary about that one time, and he said, well, I wouldn't have any problem today with the clubs of today.
No, he could hit it over. He could hit it over it today. But I remember when this tournament first started, which was 25 years ago, there was only, I think the first year there was only 17.
That's right, because Hale Irwin had won all the tournaments.
Hale and Gil Morgan had.
Yeah.
And Jack Nicklaus wasn't in the field, and Arnold Palmer, they weren't eligible. You had to have won a tournament the year before.
So they didn't play the first year?
They did not play
That's
the first
when they
year.
got the sponsor exemptions.
Well, they had a little meeting after that and said, wait a minute, maybe we ought to reconsider this eligibility criteria here in the next year. And everybody showed up, so that was good.
Yeah, I think that's a nice touch, because this year we have 11 Hall of Fame?
Yeah,
it's
a great field.
And some of the people we wouldn't otherwise see.
Hale Irwin shot his age, 2 days in a row. I'll tell you what, if there were spectators out here and I were asking people, what they wanted to accomplish, and a lot of people would say, oh, we want to just watch so we can figure out how to get better. I would say go watch Hale Irwin break his age 2 days in a row. Yeah. 74 doesn't sound like that good a score when, Clark's shooting 63. But if you watch Hale Irwin at the age of 75 shoot a 74, you can see how to play golf. He doesn't hit it far enough now to really go real low here at Hualalai. But it's just remarkable to me how well these guys play deep into there.
And how good they are with the fans, and of course can't be here today. Right. But every year there's 3 ladies that come over from Oahu, and they have a visor, and I've got pictures of it, video with Hale and them, and they've had Hale sign that visor for, I think, 30 years since the first Hawaiian Open or something, and they fly over here to get that.
Well, I hope they come back next year. I'm
sure they will be, but I have so many wonderful shots of Tom Watson, all these players with the kids, with the fans, and they're so relaxed when they're here and so wonderful. I'm so pleased to have been a part of this event. The Mitsubishi Electric Championship is here at Hualalai. It's the 25th year. We've been talking with Mark Rolfing, NBC Sports, Golf Channel, and such a visionary for Hawaii, and I'm just delighted he's going to be in Detroit in July for the Rocket Mortgage Classic. And then, of course, in September, all these players go back and they play the Ali Challenge in Flint, Michigan, where they used to play the Buick Open when they were PGA Tour players. So for me, it's wonderful to be able to weed the game of golf into the 2 communities I love, Detroit and Hawaii.
Great. Well, thanks for having me, Emily. You do such a great job. such a wonderful ambassador, especially for this island. And let's just make a date. This table next year, 1 year from today.
Right.
And we'll be having to tell everybody to quiet down because there's going to be so
That's
many
right.
people watching this thing.
And we'll make a date for it. I'll see you out at the Detroit Golf Club for the Rocket Mortgage Classic.
That's the deal. We'll do it
Looking
again.
forward to that. And I think it's what's really interesting is that the people that handle the PR are from Steve Brenner's office out of LA. Wonderful big PR company, or very influential PR company that handled the senior skins back in
Oh, wow, that's right. I forgot
in
that.
the 90s, and they opened the door for me, those guys from Brenner's Weichel and Barry Frank, who created the senior
Barry
skins,
Frank, God rest his soul.
and Chuck Gerber. I was just getting into taking a camera with me places, and they were so great, opened the door.
You were ahead of your time.
I was ahead of my time. I look at the stuff, and I started doing it because I wanted to be able to hang around Arnold Palmer, Jack Nicklaus,
boy,
all
me
these
too.
people I grew up wanting to be around, and that's where I met you, was at the Hualalai Senior Skins, and ever since you've been a wonderful mentor and friend. You and Debbie, I really appreciate it.
Thanks,
very
Emily.
much.
Take care.
It's the Emily T. Gail Talk Story Show here from the Mitsubishi Electric Championship at Hualalai on the beautiful Big Island at the beautiful Four Seasons Resort, Hualalai. Mark and I both say, aloha.